He didn't recognize her face, didn't flinch at her voice. But the moment she reached for her sleeve, and he saw that faint moon-shaped mark on her wrist, his whole world stopped. Because he'd kissed that mark every morning, 7 years ago, before he betrayed her, before she vanished, carrying a secret he never knew existed. Welcome back to Mr. Charles Stories. Today, you're about to hear a story that'll leave you breathless by the end. It's about a woman forced to rebuild her life from nothing, a man who thought he'd buried the past, and the one silent moment that forced everything back to the surface. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to come face to face with the love you abandoned, only to realize they've been carrying more than heartbreak, then keep watching. This story is for you. Chicago, a bitter Tuesday morning, with wind so sharp it sliced between tall buildings and cut through wool coats. At the top of the Argonne Hotel, inside a glass-wrapped rooftop restaurant, Cassian Duroy sat at his usual table. He was a man of precision, sharp features, colder eyes, expensive taste. The CEO of Duroy Luxe Developments, with a reputation for being brutal in meetings and heartless in decisions. This morning was no different. He sipped his black coffee while his assistant clicked through quarterly figures on a tablet. His CFO, a woman named Mara, asked about real estate in Miami. Cassian barely responded. He didn't like wasting words. He liked numbers, control, and silence. Then a waiter leaned in, careful not to interrupt the discussion. "Sir, there's been an issue," he murmured. "A watch is missing." "Your watch?" Cassian froze. "The platinum one?" The waiter nodded nervously. "Yes, sir. From your suite. Security caught someone on camera, one of the servers. She entered the suite after hours." Cassian's jaw tensed. He hated drama, hated incompetence. But above all, he hated being stolen from. "Bring her here," he said coldly. "Now." A few minutes later, a woman stepped out from behind the staff corridor. She wore a black apron, flour dust on her sleeve, and a deep burgundy blouse under her uniform. Her hair was pulled into a bun. Her face was flushed from working near the hot kitchen stoves. She didn't look nervous. Cassian glanced up without interest. To him, she was just another staff member, another forgettable worker in a world of disposable people. His gaze swept over her. Something in her posture struck him. Too upright, too still, but his irritation drowned it out. "You want to explain," he asked bluntly, "why you were near my suite last night?" She blinked. "I was told to clean the glasses." "Who told you?" "Supervisor." She said the room needed a reset for the next guest. Cassian didn't flinch. "And did you take anything?" Her eyes met his, cool and steady. "No, no." He repeated, "No." He tilted his head slightly. "You entered a billionaire's private suite after hours, alone. Then hours later, a platinum watch is missing. That's not a coincidence." She didn't blink. "I didn't take your watch." Her calmness unsettled him. She wasn't defiant. She wasn't afraid. She was composed. And something about her voice, soft, low, familiar, pressed against the edges of his memory. Still, he stayed cold. He nodded toward his assistant. "Let's get security to—" And then she reached for her sleeve. She pulled it down absent-mindedly, as if chilled. And that's when he saw it. A small, faint moon-shaped birthmark on the inside of her left wrist. Cassian froze. He knew that mark. He had memorized that shape with his lips. Years ago, in the quiet of morning, he used to kiss it before she woke. Before he left her. Before he made the worst mistake of his life. The assistant noticed his shift. "Sir?" But Cassian didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on her wrist. Then her face. Now he really looked. The shape of her jaw. The curve of her eyes. That voice. No, no, it couldn't be. But then her gaze sharpened. Just slightly. Like she felt the change too. He whispered, "Leora?" She stiffened. And for the first time in years, he wasn't in control. The moment he said her name, something shifted. Not just in the room, but in the air between them. Cassian didn't care about the stares now, not from the assistant shifting behind him, not from the waiter lingering awkwardly by the bar, not even from Mara, who gave a sharp glance and subtly tapped her tablet to draw his attention back to the meeting. None of it mattered. All he could see was her face, and that mark, that silent reminder of the life he never stayed to understand. She hadn't changed as much as he expected. Her hair was pulled back in a bun, but the strands that framed her face were familiar. Her eyes, those eyes, were the same storm grey that used to watch him sleep and sketch his hands while he worked late at night. But now they were harder, guarded, and when she spoke, her voice didn't tremble. "You remember me," she said quietly. It wasn't a question. "I do," he said. Her arms crossed over her chest. "Took you long enough." Cassian didn't flinch. Leora. That name had lived in the back of his mind for years. He'd buried it under contracts, meetings, and power. Buried it so deep, he told himself she never existed beyond that summer. Just a summer, a mistake he refused to revisit. But here she was, in front of him, serving coffee, being accused of theft, and looking at him like he was the stranger. "You accused me," she said softly. "Before you even looked at me." He stayed silent. "You didn't even ask if it made sense," she continued. "Didn't ask if maybe your watch was misplaced. Didn't ask why I was even near your suite." Cassian's voice tightened. "Security said." "Security didn't know who I was. Neither did you." He glanced down at her wrist. The mark hadn't changed. Faint and delicate, like a crescent moon drawn in watercolor. "I know that birthmark," he said. She raised her chin. "So do I." Cassian's assistant stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, we could speak to her privately if needed. But this meeting—" He waved her off. "I said I'll handle this." His gaze never left Leora. "Where did you go?" Her expression didn't change. "After you had me removed, I went where you said I belonged. Somewhere else." "You left a letter," he said. Something flickered across her face. Surprise? Sadness? Anger? It disappeared before he could name it. "Yes," she replied. "I never saw it," he said. "The receptionist did her job," Leora cut in. "I handed it to her, told her it was for you, that it was private, urgent." Cassian ran a hand over his mouth, trying to steady the sinking feeling in his stomach. "I didn't know." Her eyes narrowed. "You didn't care to ask. I would have." "You didn't," she said, flat. "You don't get to rewrite it now." Silence stretched between them. Loud, awkward, unforgiving. He broke it first. "You were pregnant?" Her lips tightened. "I was," she said. "And now?" he asked. Leora reached into the pocket of her apron and pulled out her phone. With slow fingers, she tapped something. Then, without saying a word, she turned the screen toward him. Cassian saw a photo. A boy, no older than 6 or 7, dark curls, pale eyes, sitting in a worn hoodie at a kitchen table, drawing on a placemat with bright crayons. The way his brow furrowed in concentration. The way his mouth tilted slightly at the corner. It was like looking into a mirror. Cassian's breath caught. "That's my son?" he asked hoarsely. Leora didn't answer. She didn't need to. He stared at the image until it blurred. He couldn't look away. "I had no idea," he whispered. "Because you never opened the letter," she said. "Because you made up your mind about me. Just like you did today." She pulled the phone back and slid it into her pocket. "Some things never change." Cassian rubbed his temple, shaken. "Why didn't you come back? Reach out?" "Because I didn't want your pity, or your name, or your guilt," she said. Her voice cracked, barely, but she forced it steady. "I wanted to protect my child, from men who make promises and walk away the moment they're inconvenient." Cassian swallowed hard. "I wasn't ready." She stepped forward. "No one is." "I was afraid," he admitted. She laughed once. "It wasn't cruel. It was tired." "You were afraid?" "I was 23, alone. I'd just been fired and thrown out of a man's office without explanation. And still, I carried that baby. Still, I worked. Still, I made a life." Cassian looked at her. Really looked. the lines under her eyes, the strength in her voice, the calm dignity she wore like armor. "You've done well," he said. She tilted her head. "You mean I didn't collapse? Didn't become a charity case?" "No," he said. "I mean, you became the woman I always knew you were." That stopped her. For a second, her breath hitched, but she looked away. "I don't need compliments," she murmured. "I'm not offering them," he said. "I'm asking for one meeting." Her eyes met his, sharp, cautious. "For what?" "For him," Cassian said. "I want to meet him." Leora didn't speak. He waited. Then she said, "He doesn't know about you." Cassian's throat tightened. "I understand." "No, you don't," she said. "You've lived in penthouses. He's lived in apartments where the walls leak when it rains. You've had housekeepers. He's learned to clean up after dinner because I get home too tired to move. You don't know him." "I want to," he said. A long beat passed. Leora exhaled. "One meeting. Not as a father, as a man. He doesn't call you anything yet." Cassian nodded slowly. "Okay." She stepped back. "Then don't be late. He hates being kept waiting." And with that, she walked away, her back straight, her steps calm, leaving him in the middle of the restaurant, surrounded by polished floors, spotless glass, and silence. His assistant approached, her voice hushed. "Should we contact security about the watch?" Cassian blinked, like waking from a long dream. "No," he said. "It's not missing. It's just misplaced." "But the footage—" "I'll review it myself," he said, already walking away. And in that moment, for the first time in years, Cassian Duroy realized something terrifying. He didn't know what mattered more, his business, or the son who had his eyes. Then, 7 years ago, it started with coffee. Not the kind he drank now, brewed by silent staff, poured into sleek ceramic with gold rims. Back then, it was burnt and watery, scooped from a breakroom pot that barely worked. But she poured it with the same care she gave everything. Leora had just turned 23. She was quiet, but sharp. An intern in the design department at Duroy Luxe, taking evening classes at the community college just to stay afloat. The internship didn't pay much, but she made every hour count. Her sketchbook came with her everywhere, tucked behind cleaning checklists, crammed in a corner of her tote bag. While others scrolled through their phones on break, she sketched buildings, angled rooftops, glass that caught the sun, homes with curves that felt like safety. She didn't stand out at first. That was the point. But Cassian noticed her. He was rising fast then, already a vice president, rumored to be next in line for CEO. Suits tailored, words sharpened. Everyone walked faster when he entered a room. He was untouchable. Except when he saw her, hunched over a table in the break room, drawing the light hitting the side of the building across the street. He paused, and the second time he saw her, on her knees fixing a tilted display when no one else did, he asked her name. "Leora," she'd said, surprised. "Leora Venn." And then he didn't forget it. He started asking for her, quietly, asking her to bring revised layouts, asking her to proof proposals, things interns didn't usually touch. At first, she thought it was a mistake, that she'd be called out, punished. But Cassian wasn't flirting. He was watching. And she was different. Leora didn't dress to impress, didn't speak to flatter. When he asked her opinion on a layout during a late-night team review, she told him the truth, told him where the spacing felt forced, told him the windows were wrong for a family that wanted peace. He didn't get mad. He changed the plan. And after that, he invited her to more meetings. They spent most evenings in the conference room, long after others had gone home. At first, it was work. Then, it was talk. Then, one night, it wasn't either. They were alone, reviewing building codes, when he noticed her rubbing her wrist absently. "What is that?" he asked, pointing. She looked down at the faint birthmark. "Nothing." "A moon I never asked for." He stepped closer. "It's beautiful," he said. She rolled her eyes. It's a scar that didn't know how to finish itself. He reached for her wrist slowly, brushing his thumb over the mark. She froze. Then, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, he leaned in and kissed it, and everything changed. It wasn't love at first sight. It was slower, softer, like a curtain opening without anyone pulling it. They didn't announce it. Couldn't. The firm had policies. Cassian had a future to protect. But in quiet corners, his private office, her tiny apartment, everything bloomed. They took long drives. He told her about his mother, who raised him alone in a Chicago walk-up. She told him about her brother, who died in a fire, about her fear of being ordinary. He didn't say, "I love you," but his silence felt like one. She didn't say stay, but her eyes did. Nights turned to weeks. He gave her a necklace, simple chain, with his initials carved on the back of a silver charm. She wore it tucked under her uniform every day. He promised they'd figure it out after the next round of investor meetings. She believed him. But something shifted in July. He texted less. His meetings ran longer. He stopped asking her to stay after hours. She tried to explain it away, told herself it was pressure, that he would come back. She waited, until one morning she stood outside his office, a small envelope clutched in her hand. She'd taken the test 3 times, the same result each time. She didn't want money, or drama, or force. She just wanted to tell him. Her fingers shook as she handed it to the receptionist. "Please make sure Mr. Duroy sees this," she said. "It's personal. It's urgent." The woman nodded, and Leora left, hopeful, nervous. She went home, curled up on her bed, and waited. The next day, she was called to HR. No explanation, no hearing, just a notice. Her internship had ended early. A man from security walked her to the elevator. She asked to speak to Cassian. They said he was unavailable. She went to his office, heart in her throat. The door was closed. Through the frosted glass, she saw his silhouette. He didn't open it. She waited an hour. Nothing. Then she left her badge, her notebooks, even the necklace. She didn't cry until she got home. No calls, no messages, no explanation. She walked past construction sites with tears in her eyes. Went to the free clinic alone, made a plan, started looking for work. Not once did she allow herself to ask why, because she already knew. He had made his choice. And this time, it wasn't her. The city didn't wait for her heartbreak. Chicago kept moving, loud, fast and cold. Buses still ran late. Rent still climbed. The world still asked for things she didn't have the strength to give. Leora learned quickly that being pregnant didn't make the world softer. It made it crueler. She applied for jobs with her resume stripped of the Duroy name. No one called back. The only place that said yes was a diner that needed a waitress for the graveyard shift. She took it. 3 weeks after she left the internship, her body began to change. The nausea came in waves. The fatigue crushed her bones. But she kept working, because there was no one else. No one to ask. No one who cared. Cassian didn't come. Didn't text. Didn't send a message through anyone. Nothing. And that silence was louder than anything he could have said. The night she heard his name again, it was on TV. He'd made partner, closed a multi-million-dollar deal, smiling in a suit on the cover of a real estate magazine. She turned the volume down and finished folding uniforms. When her feet hurt too much, she soaked them in the sink and sketched floor plans in her old notebook. Her belly grew. Her back ached. Still, she showed up for every shift. She told no one. When the manager asked if she needed time off later, she smiled and said, "I'll manage." And she did. She managed everything. The day her water broke, she was alone in a 1-bedroom unit on the edge of South Shore. The hospital was 23 minutes away by cab. She labored quietly, bit her tongue, screamed into a towel. No one held her hand. No one whispered, "You're doing great." But when her son was placed on her chest and he blinked up at her with Cassian's eyes, the pain was forgotten. She named him Jace, not after anyone, Not for anyone. Just Jace. Her beginning. Those first months were the hardest. Her body healed slowly. Her hands cracked from washing dishes. Sleep became a luxury. But Jace laughed early. A deep little laugh that reminded her why she kept going. She wore thrifted clothes, walked to work, saved every dollar. The necklace Cassian gave her stayed in a box under her bed. The charm still held his initials, but they no longer meant anything. She didn't tell Jace about him, not even once. To her, silence was safer than a half-truth. She never said his name, never showed his picture, but every time Jace furrowed his brow while reading, she saw him. Every time he slept with one hand over his stomach, she saw him. She hated that. Years passed. She moved neighborhoods, found a better job at a hotel, tucked her sketches away, focused on bills, on school meetings, on math homework and lunches packed in foil. Jace asked once, "Where's my dad?" She had paused, looked him in the eye and said, "I'll tell you one day." He never pushed again. And then, out of nowhere, she was called into the manager's office at the luxury hotel where she worked. The client reported a missing watch, her supervisor said. She nodded. "I cleaned his suite, like I always do." Her supervisor looked uncomfortable. Security flagged the time. "It was after your shift," Leora remembered. The last-minute request. Someone said the suite was needed for another very important person. She followed orders. That morning, she showed up early, nervous but calm. Then she saw the name on the guest list. Cassian DeRoy. It slammed into her like a fist. Still, she didn't run. She walked into the restaurant, wiped tables, adjusted cutlery, and when the waiter approached her with the whisper of a missing watch, she already knew how this would play out. They brought her to his table. He looked up. She waited for recognition. It didn't come. Not at first. She stood there, while he squinted at her like she was a smudge on his schedule. And when he spoke, cold, clipped, direct, she felt it all over again. Like she was disposable, forgettable. He asked why she was in his suite. She answered clearly. He accused. She didn't flinch. Then, her sleeve slipped. She reached to fix it, and his voice changed. He said her name. And suddenly, he wasn't the man in the magazines anymore. He was the man who kissed her wrist after midnight. The man who never read her letter. The man who called security. She felt nothing. Nothing but a dull ache, like pressing on a bruise that never healed right. He tried to explain. Tried to say he didn't know. But what difference did that make? He hadn't looked. He hadn't cared to. "You threw me out," she had said. And she meant it. She wasn't the girl in the break room anymore. She wasn't drawing homes in the margins of corporate memos. She was a mother now. And that changed everything. She showed him Jace's photo, let him see the truth he ignored, watched his face pale, his lips part, let him taste the weight of his own silence. He begged for a meeting. She didn't say yes for him. She said yes for her son. Because maybe, just maybe, Jace deserved more than a ghost of a father. That afternoon, when she walked away from Cassian and the polished glass restaurant, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. For the first time in years, he was the one left staring into a life he couldn't control. And she? She had already built one without him. Have you ever been forced to build your life from nothing, while the person who hurt you moved on like you never existed? Drop A in the comments if you've ever had to rise in silence. And if you believe the truth always finds its way back, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. The day of the meeting came faster than Leora expected. She had agreed. Not for closure, not for Cassian, and certainly not for herself. She said yes for Jace. But deep down, part of her still wasn't sure if she should have. The morning began like every other. She packed Jace's lunch, folded his homework into his backpack, pinned his name tag onto his coat. The usual rhythm. But her hands shook more than usual. When Jace asked why they were leaving earlier than normal, she told him they were meeting someone new, someone from before. He didn't ask who. He just nodded and tightened the strap on his backpack. That was Jace, observant, quiet, sharp, just like the man waiting on the other side of the cafe window. Cassian chose a neutral spot, a family-owned cafe with dusty windows and soft muffins that fell apart too fast. It wasn't somewhere he'd ever been before. That was intentional. He sat near the back, in a booth that faced the door, his hands flat on the table, no phone in sight. He looked uncomfortable in his own skin. Not because of the place, because of the moment. This wasn't a negotiation, it wasn't a deal, it was a reckoning. The bell over the door jingled softly. Leora stepped in first, scanning the room, checking the exits, an old habit from years of working double shifts and learning to protect herself in silence. Jace came in behind her. His hands were in his coat pockets. His curls a little uneven from the last-minute haircut she gave him in the bathroom that week. He didn't speak, but his eyes moved fast, scanning, reading. And when he spotted the man at the table, something in his steps slowed. Leora placed a hand gently on his back. Cassian stood. He couldn't help it. His chest tightened. His throat clenched. The boy was him. The same stare, same hairline, same small scar above the eyebrow from a tumble, maybe. "Hi," Leora said, voice neutral. Cassian's voice barely made it out. "Hi." Leora looked down at Jace. "This is Cassian. You can call him whatever feels right to you." Jace didn't move closer. He stood beside her, examining Cassian with a kind of calm that was unsettling. Cassian cleared his throat. "Hi, Jace. I've heard a lot about you." "No, you haven't," Jace said flatly. "You didn't even know I was alive." The words hit like a slap. Cassian blinked, caught between guilt and something deeper. "You're right. I didn't. I should have. I'm sorry." Jace nodded slowly, like he was marking a score in his head. Leora looked away. She didn't want to interrupt, didn't want to rescue either of them. This had to happen. Cassian gestured to the booth. "Can we sit?" Jace glanced up at his mother. She nodded. He slid into the seat, arms crossed. Leora sat beside him. Cassian lowered himself carefully into the opposite side. He wasn't used to this kind of silence. The meetings he ran were sharp, fast-paced, full of control. This was not that. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small wrapped object. "It's not much," he said, placing it gently on the table. "I wanted to bring something. I didn't know if I should, but here." Jace looked at it. It was a book, hardcover. Jace and the Midnight Star, a children's story about a boy who traveled the skies to find where he came from. Leora's eyebrows lifted slightly. Jace picked it up slowly, turned it over, flipped through the pages. Then he looked at Cassian and asked, "Did you read it?" Cassian nodded. "Twice. And I liked the ending." "What's the ending?" Jace challenged. Cassian didn't hesitate. "The boy thinks the star is too far away, but it's actually been following him the whole time. He just had to stop running." Jace stared at him. Then he placed the book in his lap. "Okay," he said. Cassian exhaled. A tiny crack of tension melted off his shoulders. Leora watched quietly. She hadn't expected it to go this way. She thought Jace might ignore him, walk away, ask to go home. But here they were, sitting at a chipped table under flickering lights, like some semblance of a family, with too many memories hanging in the air between them. "Would you like something to eat?" Cassian asked gently. Jace thought for a second. "Only if they have cinnamon rolls." "They do," Leora said. Cassian stood up. "I'll go order it." When he walked to the counter, Leora turned to her son. "You okay?" she asked. Jace nodded. "Yeah. What do you think?" He shrugged. "He looks like me." She smiled faintly. "He does." Jace looked up at her. "Is he staying?" The question stopped her. "I don't know," she said honestly. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether he learns to show up." Cassian came back with a paper bag and hot chocolate. He didn't say much as he sat down, placing the cinnamon roll in front of Jace and sliding the drink toward him. Jace bit into the roll and spoke with his mouth full. "This is better than school breakfast." Cassian smiled slightly. "That's good to hear." They ate in silence. The kind of silence that felt like something was starting to form. Not quite trust, but not suspicion either. Cassian looked up at Leora. "Thank you." "For this?" She nodded, but didn't soften. "This doesn't mean anything more than today," she said. "I understand." She leaned in, lowering her voice. "Don't hurt him. If you don't mean to stay, stay away. He's not a blank slate. He feels everything." "I'm not leaving," Cassian said. "Not again." Jace watched them quietly, then took another bite. And for the first time in his life, he had his mother on one side, and his father sitting across from him. He didn't understand all the pain in the room, but he understood this much. Something had changed, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. That evening, Leora stood at the sink rinsing dishes with one hand, her other arm resting on the counter as she listened to the sound of Jace's laughter from the next room. Cassian's voice followed, deeper, slower, reading something about pirates and treasure maps. It was surreal, not because he was here, but because it felt easy, too easy. She wiped her hands and leaned against the wall just outside the living room, watching them quietly. Jace sat cross-legged on the floor, a blanket draped over his shoulders like a cape. Cassian sat on the couch, holding the book flat in his lap, doing voices badly but trying. And then the Pirate King said, "We'll never find the map if we don't look inside the monkeys." Jace cut him off, giggling. "That's not how it goes." Cassian raised a brow. "Are you sure? I think I read an early edition." Leora had to bite back a smile. Cassian looked up then. His eyes found hers, and for a second, something passed between them. Not romantic, not even soft. Just real, shared. She walked in. "All right, bedtime." Jace flopped backward dramatically. "Can he read one more page?" Cassian looked at her for permission. Leora nodded once. "One more." After the page was done, she led Jace to brush his teeth and change. Cassian waited by the door, awkward again now that the book was closed and the moment had passed. When she returned, she found him standing by the window. "I didn't realize how small your place was," he said softly. Leora crossed her arms. "It's enough. Rent's fair. Close to school." "I wasn't judging," he said. "I was just thinking about everything you've handled, alone." She said nothing. "I would have helped," he added. She looked at him. "You think I didn't want help?" He turned. "I know you did. I just didn't know. I didn't look." She nodded slowly. "That's the part that still hurts. You didn't even wonder." Cassian stepped closer. "I think about it all the time now. Everything I missed. The nights, the first words, his first step." She cut in, not unkindly. "He took his first step in the hallway, fell right into the laundry basket." Cassian gave a half smile. "That sounds about right." They stood there, the silence suddenly heavier again. "You were always going to be important," he said. "That's why I pulled back. I got scared." "You were scared of love?" she asked. "I was scared of loving someone who could break me." She looked away. "I didn't ask you to love me. I just asked you to read a letter." His face twisted slightly, regret settling deeper. "I know." Leora exhaled. "This can't be a one-day thing, Cassian. You can't show up for one bedtime story and expect this to rewrite the past." "I don't," he said. "But I want to be part of his future." Leora searched his eyes. "Why now? Because you feel guilty? Because you saw a photo?" "Because I saw a boy with my eyes and your strength," he said. "And I realized I've never built anything more important than him." She blinked. That hit somewhere deep, but she didn't let it show. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he added, "but let me earn space." Her throat tightened. "That takes more than a few good intentions." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I'll show up. You don't have to believe me now. Just keep watching." Leora nodded once, then walked past him toward the hallway. She paused. "He likes soccer. But he hates losing. Cassian nodded. Got it. He sleeps with a light on. I'll remember that. She turned the corner. And if you ever disappear again, don't bother coming back. Cassian's voice didn't hesitate. I won't. That night, after he left, Leora stood by the window. The city lights blinked across buildings. The wind outside whistled low. Jace had fallen asleep with the pirate book next to his pillow. And Leora? She stood still in the dark, wondering if people really ever changed, or if they just tried harder when regret finally caught up. The next visit came 2 days later. Cassian didn't call ahead. He didn't send a text or a message. He simply showed up outside the school gates, standing in the cold with his coat collar turned up and his hands tucked into his pockets like every other waiting parent. Leora spotted him from across the lot. She didn't smile, but she didn't turn away either. When Jace came running down the steps, Cassian didn't move right away. He waited. Let the boy spot him. Let him decide what to do. Jace blinked, then gave a small nod, walking over with his backpack bouncing against his back. You came, he said. I said I would, Cassian replied. Leora watched from a distance as they exchanged awkward pleasantries. Jace handed him a folded drawing from his bag, something about a treehouse with motion lights and secret panels. Cassian looked at it like it was blueprints for a new world. He didn't get every detail, but he asked the right questions about the ladder, the roof, where the windows would go, and Jace explained everything, his hands moving fast, voice growing more animated by the second. They walked home together that day. Jace took the lead, running ahead and hopping over sidewalk cracks. Cassian kept pace beside Leora. His steps were slower, more cautious. You've raised a great kid, he said. Leora didn't answer. I mean it. He's smart, confident. She shrugged. He's had to be. Cassian nodded, accepting the weight of that answer. Can I ask you something? Depends, she said. Did you ever tell him about me? No, she said. I didn't want him growing up chasing someone who wasn't looking back. Cassian swallowed that. It landed hard, as it should have. They turned the corner toward her apartment. Do you still have the necklace? He asked suddenly. Leora glanced at him. What? The one I gave you. With my initials. She paused. Why are you asking? I remember you used to wear it every day, he said. Back when... He didn't finish. He didn't need to. She slowed her steps and reached into her coat pocket. Cassian watched as she pulled out a small pouch. Inside was the chain, tarnished now, duller than he remembered. I kept it, she said quietly. Not because of you, because of who I was when I got it. He looked at her. And who was that? Leora tucked the pouch back in. A girl who thought love could outlast power. Cassian didn't speak. The wind did, whistling between them like something half-spoken and not quite forgiven. That evening, Cassian stayed for dinner. Jace insisted. They sat around the tiny table, sharing pasta and garlic bread. Leora didn't cook anything fancy. She never had time. But it was warm, comforting. Cassian ate like it mattered. Every bite deliberate. Every glance toward his son waited with a kind of awe. After dinner, Jace excused himself to watch cartoons. Leora began clearing plates, moving around the kitchen with practiced ease. Cassian stepped in to help, reaching for the drying towel. You don't have to, she started. I want to, he said. They washed in silence, elbow to elbow, her hands in the water, his drying dish after dish. At one point, their fingers brushed. She froze. So did he. She pulled away first. You never came back for me, she said quietly. I didn't know how, he replied. She looked at him. You didn't even try. I was selfish, he admitted. I thought cutting it off meant control. I didn't realize it meant loss. She exhaled, wiping her hands on a rag. You realized too late. Cassian leaned on the counter. Maybe. But I'm here now. Leora didn't reply. After he left, Jace came into the kitchen holding the book Cassian had given him. He said He's going to help me build the treehouse. Leora bent down, meeting his eyes. What do you think about that? Jace shrugged. I think I want to believe him. Her chest tightened. Then we'll see if he keeps showing up, she said. Together, and Jace nodded. Because that's what kids do. They hope. Even when they don't know they're doing it. Cassian didn't miss the way people stared. The next time he picked Jace up from school, he noticed how the teachers lingered longer in the hallway, how the receptionist glanced twice as he signed in, how another parent nudged her friend when he stepped into the cafeteria for the school's afternoon art show. He wasn't dressed like the others. His coat was tailored, his shoes expensive. His name carried weight in this city, a name that once made headlines, a name still printed on skyline towers and investment letters. But today, that name didn't matter. He wasn't here as the CEO of Duroy Lux. He was here as Jace's father. And Jace stood next to his art project. 3 paper houses and a figure cutout labeled me, Mom, and maybe him. Cassian stared at the label. Leora noticed too. She stood beside him, arms crossed lightly over her chest, keeping a careful distance. She'd said yes when Jace invited him to attend. She hadn't said more. He leaned closer to her. I didn't know he wondered. She kept her eyes on the paper houses. He's a quiet kid. But nothing about him is shallow. He looked again at the paper version of himself. The hair was wrong, too spiky. But the eyebrows were exact. Cassian exhaled. Maybe him, he repeated under his breath. You earn titles here, Leora said softly. Not inherit them. He nodded once. Understood. Later that day, as they walked home together, Leora, Jace and Cassian, the wind had turned sharper. Grey clouds gathered over the rooftops, heavy with the smell of coming rain. Jace kicked at a rock, humming something under his breath. Cassian broke the silence. What's the tune? Something I made up, Jace answered. It's called Midnight Sneaker. Leora raised a brow. Midnight. Jace grinned. It's about a kid who steals snacks at night. Cassian chuckled. Sounds like a hit. The moment was small, but it hung there. Sweet, light, safe. And Leora felt her guard slip just a little more. At home, Jace curled up with a blanket and headphones, watching cartoons. Cassian and Leora sat at the tiny kitchen table again. No food, just mugs of tea. He stirred his, even though he hadn't added anything. I want to ask about him, he said quietly. She didn't stop him. What was his first word? Light, Leora said. He pointed at the bulb overhead, said it with a smile, brightest thing in the room, and he wanted to name it. Cassian smiled faintly. He sounds like you. He's a mix, she said. He's careful, but when he trusts you, it's full. I want him to trust me. Leora didn't speak for a moment. Then, that starts with telling him the truth. Cassian looked up. What truth? Why you weren't there, she said. Why his mom cried herself to sleep during the first year and still got up and packed lunches. Why she worked nights. Why you didn't come to the hospital, the birthdays, the school plays. He swallowed. Do I tell him all of that? No, she said. But you don't lie to him either. You show up, you earn it. And when he asks the hard questions, you tell the truth. Cassian nodded. I will. The conversation turned quiet again. He looked around her apartment. The small shelf of books, the tiny cracked vase on the windowsill, the fading couch with one armrest always covered by a blanket. This place. It's not much, she said softly, but it's been home. He turned back to her. It's more than that. It's strong. It's lived in. It's love. Leora didn't respond right away, but her eyes softened. You could have sent a check, she said after a while. Could have bought a house, paid for school. But you didn't. You came. I didn't want to fix it with money, he said. I wanted to fix what I broke. You can't undo what you did. I know, he said. But I'm staying anyway. Later that evening, he stood at the door, pulling on his coat. Leora followed him, arms folded but not tense. You'll be back tomorrow? She asked. If you'll have me. Jace would like that. He paused. And you? She looked at him for a long moment. I don't know yet. He nodded. Fair enough. Before he stepped out, she said, he's never had anyone to toss a ball with. Cassian turned. I can do that. She nodded. And then, without another word, she closed the door behind him. She stood there in the quiet afterward, her fingers resting on the doorknob. Not smiling, but not afraid either. Saturday morning came with the smell of cinnamon toast and the low hum of cartoons leaking through the living room wall. Leora stood barefoot in the kitchen, pressing the edges of Jace's sandwich into a triangle. Her body moved on routine, but her mind was elsewhere, circling the same question she'd been dodging for days. Could a man who left really change? Could he unlearn years of silence with a few soft words and bedtime stories? She didn't have the answer. But Jace, he smiled more now, asked fewer questions about the father he didn't know he'd been missing. And Cassian, he kept showing up, every day that week, with books, with soccer balls, with patience. Not once had he asked to be called Dad. Not once had he made promises. He simply came, sat, helped with homework, listened. It rattled her, because he wasn't the Cassian she remembered. He was slower now, quieter, still sharp, still precise, but less like a man building a skyline and more like one. Learning how to build eye contact with a 7-year-old who didn't smile easily. This morning, Cassian knocked exactly at 9. Leora opened the door, her expression unreadable. He's dressed, already waiting with the ball. Cassian stepped in, holding a small sports bag. We're still heading to the field? She nodded. Try not to break anything. He gave her a tight smile. I'll keep my ego in check. Jace ran up behind her, tossing the ball from hand to hand. Ready? Cassian grinned. Let's go, champ. Leora stood at the doorway as they left, the slam of the stairwell echoing down the hallway. She exhaled slowly, a hand pressing against her chest. This was harder than she thought it'd be. Not trusting him, but trusting that she might want to. The field was a few blocks away, empty, damp from early dew. A light breeze tugged at the edges of their jackets. Cassian took off his coat, setting it down near a bench. He rolled up his sleeves and looked down at Jace. You any good? He asked. I can run fast, Jace said. I believe it. They started slow. Kicks, traps, dribbles. Cassian wasn't graceful, but he was focused. He paid attention. He praised effort, not perfection. And when Jace missed the goal twice in a row, he didn't criticize. He nodded, showed him how to step into the kick. By the 4th try, Jace hit it clean. The ball zipped into the makeshift goal, 2 stacked cones. Cassian let out a loud, exaggerated cheer, running around like he'd just seen a World Cup miracle. Goal! Jace laughed harder than Cassian had ever heard. They played for nearly an hour. No phones. No distractions. Just movement, breath, and unexpected laughter. Afterward, they collapsed on the grass, breathing hard. Jace sprawled on his back, looking up at the sky. Mom never plays soccer. She's more of a boss than a baller, Cassian said, chuckling. She works too much, Jace said. She works because she had to. Jace turned his head. Because of me. Cassian sat up, shaking his head. No, because of me. Jace's eyes narrowed. Because you left. Cassian didn't look away. Yeah. Because I left. Jace rolled back to face the clouds. She cried sometimes. When she thought I couldn't hear, Cassian's throat tightened. I'm sorry she had to carry that alone. She said people leave when they're scared, Jace added. Cassian took a deep breath. She was right. There was a long pause. Then Jace said, Are you still scared? Cassian stared at the sky for a long time before answering. Every day, he said. Back at the apartment, Leora was wiping down the counter when they returned. Jace ran in first, flushed and smiling. We played for hours. I scored 5 goals. Cassian followed, his jacket over his shoulder, dirt on his shoes. 7, he corrected. But he's being humble. Jace laughed, dropping onto the couch and grabbing the remote. Leora looked at Cassian, noting the change. His posture was lighter. His voice didn't carry weight. It carried warmth. He held his own, Cassian said. She poured him a glass of water. You look like you pulled something. He chuckled. Pretty sure I did. He leaned against the counter, taking the glass from her hand, their fingers brushing briefly. You're doing more than I expected, she said. I'm not here to impress you. Good, she replied. Because I don't impress easy anymore. They stood in silence for a few seconds. He nodded toward Jace, now lying upside down on the couch. You made something beautiful, he said. She shook her head. He made himself. I just gave him space to grow. Cassian looked over at her. You didn't just survive, Leora. You raised someone who still believes in people. That's not nothing. Her throat tightened. Before she could answer, Jace yelled from the couch. Movie night? Leora called back. That's Friday. But it feels like Friday, Jace insisted. Cassian raised an eyebrow. I could stay, if that's okay. Leora hesitated. Then you pick the movie. Jace threw a pillow in the air in victory. Cassian smiled, setting the glass down. You sure? No, she said honestly. But we'll figure it out. And that night, on a second-hand couch in a too-small living room, a little boy sat between two people learning how to rebuild a family from nothing. They didn't speak of the past, didn't try to fix what couldn't be undone. They just sat there, shoulder to shoulder, popcorn in a cracked bowl, and an old animated movie playing too loud. And for the first time in years, Leora let herself lean back, not into the man beside her, but into the moment. The next morning brought an unfamiliar quiet. Leora stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the neighborhood wake. A soft drizzle dotted the glass. Jace was still asleep, tangled in his blanket, one leg sticking off the side of the bed like always. And Cassian, he hadn't stayed the night. He wouldn't have asked. But his presence lingered, not in a disruptive way, in a way that made her apartment feel less hollow. She glanced over at the couch where he'd sat. The folded blanket still lay on the armrest. The empty cup he used was rinsed and drying beside the sink. It was strange. He wasn't trying to take over. He wasn't pushing. He was just showing up. And that unsettled her more than his absence ever had. At work that afternoon, Leora moved slower. Her shift was packed. Weddings, back-to-back service for a private event, impatient clients who snapped their fingers instead of asking politely. Still, her mind stayed elsewhere. In the staff locker room, her co-worker, Nia, raised an eyebrow. You've been weirdly quiet. I'm always quiet, Leora said, forcing a smile. No, you're focused. This is different. Leora hesitated, then said, Jace's father came back. Nia paused mid-step. Seriously? Leora nodded. He just appeared. Pretty much. Girl, what did you do? Leora leaned against the locker. Let him see Jace. Watched him read bedtime stories. Played soccer yesterday. Nia stared. Wait. You let him in your house. Not all the way. Just enough to see if he still folds into the space he abandoned. And, Leora hesitated, he doesn't fit the same. But he's not forcing himself in either. Nia chewed her lip. So, he's trying? Leora nodded slowly. Yeah, and that's what scares me. That night, Leora walked into the apartment carrying a tired Jace on her hip. He'd fallen asleep in the cab. She gently laid him down, pulled off his shoes, and covered him with a soft throw. She didn't turn on the lights. She just sat on the edge of the couch, listening to the rain tap the windows. Her phone buzzed once. Cassian, let me know if Jace got home okay. I'll be around tomorrow. Dinner's on me. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed, he's asleep. He had a good day. And okay, no emojis. No warmth. Just the truth. She didn't owe him anything more than that. But she also didn't want to shut the door. The next evening, Cassian brought takeout. 3 brown bags, 2 drinks, and an awkward smile. Jace dug in immediately. Leora watched the way Cassian moved. Not like a guest, not like he owned the space, but somewhere in between. He offered to clean the dishes, wiped the table, sat when invited. It was strange, but not unpleasant. After dinner, Jace went to his room to work on a school project. Cassian lingered in the kitchen, elbows resting on the counter, looking at her. "I saw your old designs," he said. Leora stiffened. "Whoa." "In the sketchbook. The one by the bookshelf. You opened it." He held up his hands. "Just the cover. The title caught me. Things I haven't built yet." She exhaled. "That was from another life." He shook his head. "It doesn't have to be." Leora narrowed her eyes. "Please don't make this your redemption arc." "I'm not," he said. "I just think you were talented then, and you still are now." She didn't respond. "I know I stole more than your trust," he continued. "I stole your space, your voice. I want to give some of that back." She turned fully toward him. "You think I stopped drawing because of you? I think you stopped because you had to survive." She said nothing. "I want to sponsor your license renewal," he added. "Pay for your enrollment, no strings." Leora crossed her arms. "I don't want your money." "It's not about money," he said. "It's about returning what I once took from you." She stared at him. "You didn't just take it. You made me believe it was mine, then dropped me mid-step." His face fell. "I know," he said. She looked away. "I'm not ready to dream again." "Then don't," he replied. "Just sketch. That's all." Silence. Then, finally, "Leave the sketchbook alone." He nodded. "Of course." Later, as he got up to leave, Jace ran out of his room with a drawing in hand. "Wait." Cassian turned. "Yeah?" Jace held out the paper. "It's us." At the field, Cassian looked down at the crude figures, 2 stick men, 1 ball, a giant sun. But it was labeled, "Me and my dad." His chest tightened. Leora saw the moment land on his face. "Thank you," he whispered. Jace smiled, and, for the first time, called him something new. "You're welcome, Dad." Leora froze. Cassian didn't speak. He only knelt, pulled Jace in for a hug, and closed his eyes like the boy had handed him the world. The morning Cassian's name hit the press again, Leora was stirring creamer into her coffee, half distracted by the radio, half listening to Jace mumble through a math worksheet at the table. Then her phone buzzed. A message from Nia. "Girl, check the headline. Your man's name is everywhere." Leora's stomach dropped. She clicked the link. Real estate mogul Cassian DeRoy spotted leaving Southside apartment. With child. Rumors swirl around secret son. Her pulse skipped. Below the title was a grainy photo of Cassian and Jace walking out of her building, his hand on the boy's shoulder, both of them smiling. She hadn't even seen the photographer. She hadn't noticed anyone at all. But someone had been watching, and now the story had a life of its own. An hour later, Cassian showed up at her door. Early, not his usual time. Leora opened it before he could knock twice. "I saw it," she said. "I know," he replied. They stood in the hallway for a beat, neither moving. "Is it real?" she asked. "Is it going viral?" "Top trend in our sector," he said. "Board's already calling." Jace peeked around the corner. "What's going on?" Cassian kept his voice steady. "Just work stuff, buddy. Nothing to worry about." Leora gestured for him to come in. He did. They sat on the couch. Jace went back to his worksheet, headphones on. Leora lowered her voice. "This is exactly what I didn't want." "I didn't tell anyone," Cassian said. "I swear." She rubbed her temple. "You should have known this would happen. You're not a regular guy. You're him, the CEO, the face." "I wanted to be just his father," Cassian said. "Not a headline." She looked him dead in the eyes. "Now you're both." That afternoon, Leora's building manager called, then her supervisor at the hotel. Suddenly, people who hadn't spoken to her in months were texting with questions disguised as concern. "Is it true? Are you two back together? Is Jace really his son?" She didn't answer any of them. Instead, she sat on her couch in silence, Jace napping beside her, Cassian gone to handle the fallout. She stared at the TV without watching. This wasn't what she signed up for. This wasn't peace. This was attention, unasked, unwanted, unforgiving. By evening, the front of her building had cameras. Not many, but enough for a neighbor to call her phone and warn her to leave through the back. Leora didn't run, but she didn't want Jace caught in the mess either. She packed a small bag and walked him 3 blocks to a friend's apartment for the night. When she returned, Cassian was already waiting, leaning against the hallway wall. Tie loosened, hair undone, phone still in his hand. He looked exhausted. "They want me to issue a statement," he said. Leora crossed her arms. "What kind of statement? That the rumors aren't true?" She laughed once. It wasn't amused. "They want you to deny your son? They want me to protect the company, the brand." She stepped forward. "And what do you want?" He looked at her then, jaw tight, eyes red. "I want them to know he's mine," he said. "That I failed, that I missed years, but that I'm here now. Then say that." "They won't back it," he said. "They'll pull endorsements. They'll paint me as reckless." "You were," she snapped. "But at least be honest about it." He looked down. "It's not that simple." She turned to walk back inside. Before closing the door, she said, "When you figure out who matters more, your board or your boy, you know where we are." And she shut the door. Cassian stood in the hallway for a full minute. The silence felt heavier than 1,000 reporters. Because she wasn't wrong. And he knew it. Cassian sat alone in his penthouse office, lights dimmed, city skyline burning behind him. The floor-to-ceiling windows cast his reflection across the room. Tailored shirt, half untucked, phone face down, untouched whiskey sweating on the table. His publicist had left an hour ago. So had his lawyer. Both said the same thing in different words. Protect the brand. Control the narrative. Distance yourself. But how do you distance yourself from a child who looks like your reflection? From a woman who once believed in you before the world ever knew your name? He scrolled through his phone, pausing at the grainy image. Jace, walking beside him. The boy's face turned up, mid-laugh. The innocence in that smile cut deeper than any press leak. His fingers hovered over the post button. He'd typed and deleted the caption 5 times. He wasn't worried about money. He was worried about truth. Wasn't that what Leora had asked for? Not gestures, not apologies, but truth. He turned off the screen and leaned back in his chair. This wasn't about being CEO anymore. This was about being a man Jace would be proud to claim. The next day, Cassian made a decision. He sent out a press release, one his board didn't approve. "There's a boy. His name is Jace, and he's mine. I didn't know for 7 years, but now that I do, I refuse to stay silent. To my partners, this may seem messy. To the public, may be surprising. But to me, it's simple. Being a father is the most important role I'll ever hold. And I intend to honor it." He ended the statement with a single photo, not the paparazzi shot, but a scanned image of Jace's crayon drawing, me and my dad. That was it. No fancy language, no boardroom polish, just truth. Leora read it in the break room on her lunch break. Her hands trembled. The coffee in her cup rippled slightly. A co-worker walked by and stopped. "Hey, this is about you, isn't it?" Leora didn't answer. But her silence was loud enough. That evening, Cassian didn't knock. He waited by the apartment gate with his hands in his coat pockets. Jace spotted him through the window first. "He's outside," the boy said. "Should I let him in?" Leora stood behind him, arms crossed. She didn't speak, just nodded. Jace ran down the stairs, swinging the front door open. "Mom said okay," he said, matter of fact. Cassian stepped inside. Leora didn't meet his eyes immediately. She was at the stove, stirring something. The scent of garlic and tomatoes softening the tension in the room. Cassian stepped closer. "I posted the truth. I saw," she said. He waited. "You mad?" She looked over her shoulder. "No." Surprised, he asked, "Why not?" "Because you didn't do it for me," she said. You did it for him. He nodded. And for me. She faced him fully now. There's still going to be noise, reporters, questions, maybe even threats. I'm ready. Leora studied him. And when they come knocking at this door, I'll be here, he said. On this side of it, dinner was quiet, not tense, just thoughtful. Jace rambled about a science experiment involving soda and vinegar. He laughed too loud, talked too fast. Neither adult interrupted. After Jace went to bed, Leora stood at the sink again, washing dishes while Cassian dried them beside her. He finally broke the silence. Thank you. For what? She asked. For giving me the space to become what I should have been years ago. She didn't speak. He added, You didn't have to. You could have shut the door. I almost did, she admitted. But then Jace smiled, and I realized I hadn't seen him do that in months. Cassian nodded. I want to keep giving him reasons to smile. Leora looked at him. That starts with consistency, not grand gestures. I'm learning. You better, she said. Because if you disappear again, I won't come looking. I'm not going anywhere. You sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Leora rinsed the last plate, shut off the water, and leaned against the counter. You still have work to do, she said. I know. She handed him a towel. Start by folding this right. He laughed. Yes, ma'am. And as the laughter faded, a quiet understanding filled the space between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe something close. Have you ever been torn between protecting your peace and giving someone a second chance? If you've ever had to choose between silence and truth, let us know how you handled it. Drop A in the comments if you believe real change takes more than words, it takes action. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more. Saturday morning came with a slow breeze and the scent of something sweet in the air. Leora stood barefoot on the balcony, arms wrapped around herself, watching the sun fight its way through the clouds. Inside, Jace was laughing, real full laughter, from the living room. It echoed against the walls like a new sound, one she hadn't heard in too long. Cassian's voice followed. Hey, that's not fair. You added extra armor. It's my superhero design. Jace shot back. Mine gets a laser eye now. Cassian groaned dramatically. No one said anything about lasers. Leora smiled into her mug. A small one. Careful. But it was there. Inside, the two of them sat cross-legged on the rug, surrounded by art supplies and a giant poster board covered in rough sketches. Their superhero project had spilled across half the apartment floor. There were smudges of red and black marker on Cassian's shirt, and too sticky. Juice boxes balanced precariously on the edge of the coffee table. Do all dads get this messy? Jace asked. Cassian grinned. The good ones do. Later, while Jace was rinsing off his hands, Cassian joined Leora in the kitchen. He's got an imagination, he said, reaching for a towel. He gets that from me, she replied without hesitation. Cassian didn't argue. I believe it. They stood in silence for a moment, not tense, just quiet. Then Leora spoke. He's happier lately. I've noticed. It scares me. Cassian looked over at her. Why? Because happy can make you trust again, and trust is what hurt me the most. Cassian leaned against the counter. I know I can't erase the past. No, she said, but you can stop repeating it. I'm trying. She nodded. Then keep going. That afternoon, they went out together, just the three of them. Nothing fancy. Just the park, a bag of chips, and a small orange kite Jace insisted on flying. Cassian ran with him through the open grass, both of them shouting over the wind. Leora watched from the bench, sunglasses on, one hand gripping the strap of her purse. She didn't know what they looked like to the outside world. A family, maybe, maybe not. But for once, she didn't care. Because Jace was running freely, hair in the wind, no shadow behind his eyes. Because the man who had once let her down hadn't missed a day since. Later, while Jace lay in the grass catching his breath, Leora handed Cassian a bottle of water. He took it with a quiet, "Thanks." They sat beside each other, knees just inches apart. Leora didn't speak at first. Then she said, "You ever think about what would have happened if you'd read the letter?" Cassian exhaled. "Every day. What do you see?" "I see a man who would have chosen differently, fought harder, made space for her dreams." Leora looked away. "I think about it too, but I also wonder, maybe it needed to fall apart so I could learn to build on my own." He looked at her then. "You've built something strong. I had no choice." "You did," he said gently. "You could have broken, but I didn't," she replied. "Because of him." Cassian glanced at Jace, now twirling a blade of grass between his fingers. "I want to be worthy of both of you," he said. Leora didn't answer right away. Then, "That starts by staying when the weather changes." He nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." By Wednesday, something subtle had changed in the apartment. Not in the furniture, not in the paint or the curtains, but in the energy. The silence felt softer, the air lighter. Jace no longer hesitated before mentioning Cassian's name. He spoke freely about their plans, soccer drills, drawings, funny things. Cassian said when he tried to cook toast and burned the edge. And Leora, she listened. At first, cautiously, then curiously, but the real shift came one night while she was folding laundry and heard Jace whisper through the bedroom wall, "I think my dad is really staying." It stopped her cold, not because it wasn't true, but because her son believed it. Cassian had become a steady rhythm. He picked Jace up after school 3 times that week. He texted Leora each morning, even if it was just a short, "Let me know what you two need." He dropped off snacks Jace liked, left post-it notes with silly sketches. He didn't try to take space. He waited for it to be given. One night, Leora found a sticky note on the fridge. "Forgot how good you were at folding towels. Might need lessons." "See," she shook her head, trying not to smile. He wasn't charming her. He was just trying to be part of the life he once abandoned. And that was new. Friday night, Jace invited him to their movie night again. He chose a different animated film, something about time-traveling frogs and missing shoes. They watched from the couch, Jace in the middle, popcorn bowl in his lap. Cassian stayed until the credits rolled, then helped carry Jace to bed when he fell asleep midway through the final scene. Leora watched as he carefully laid the boy down, pulled the blanket over his small frame, and brushed a hand over his curls. He whispered something. Leora couldn't hear it all, but she caught the words, "Thank you, and you make me brave." Cassian turned, surprised to find her at the doorway. Their eyes locked. No one spoke. He moved past her into the living room. She followed. Neither sat. He slipped on his jacket slowly. "Thanks for letting me stay." Leora folded her arms, leaning against the wall. He asked. "I didn't say no. You didn't say yes either." She looked at him. "I'm still figuring that part out." Cassian nodded. "I'm not in a rush. I'll wait. You always say that. This time I mean it." He reached the door, then turned back. "I know what I did before. Can't be erased." Leora stared at him. "Good, because I'm not interested in pretending it didn't happen." "I'm not either." She stepped closer, arms still folded. "You want to know what I hated most?" He waited. It wasn't the silence, or the rejection. It was knowing you could have asked, but you didn't. You could have been curious, but you let yourself forget. "I punished you for loving me," he said softly. "And I punished myself too." She didn't argue. He stepped out into the hallway, the sound of the city rushing up from the stairwell below. Before she could close the door, he added one more thing. "I'm not trying to be the man I was. I'm learning to be the man I should have been. That's the version I want Jace to grow up around." She nodded slowly. "Then don't stop." He smiled gently. And this time, she didn't shut the door immediately. She watched him walk down the hall, watched him take every step. Then she closed the door, quietly, not in anger, not in fear, but with a sense of something unfamiliar settling in her chest. Hope. Sunday morning, Leora opened her closet and reached for the small box tucked behind a stack of old towels. She hadn't touched it in years. The lid came off slower than she expected. Her fingers brushed the edge of the silver chain. It was still there, still cool to the touch, still holding that charm, engraved with Cassian's initials, back when his presence felt like a promise instead of a mistake. She sat on the bed with it in her lap. Her heart was steady, her mind less so. She didn't cry, she didn't smile. She just stared at it, wondering if it still meant anything. If it could. Later that afternoon, she and Jace met Cassian at a neighborhood fair. Bright tents lined the park, with music playing from old speakers and the smell of fried dough in the air. Cassian wasn't in a suit this time. He wore jeans, a soft grey sweater, and that quiet smile that didn't ask for attention. Jace ran ahead to the game stalls, dragging Cassian behind him. Leora followed slowly, watching from a few paces back. She noticed how Cassian slowed his steps to match Jace's, how he crouched when they spoke, how he let the boy lead. When Jace finally won a stuffed frog by knocking over 3 cans, he turned and shouted, "Mom, did you see?" Leora gave him a thumbs up, but her eyes were on Cassian. He hadn't stopped smiling, and she hated how natural it looked. They sat under a food tent sharing lemonade and funnel cake. Cassian dusted powdered sugar off Jace's nose, then glanced at Leora. "You okay?" She nodded. "Sure." She met his eyes. "I'm watching, that's all." He leaned in slightly. "And what do you see?" "I see a man trying," she said. "But I've seen that before." He nodded. "And this time? I don't know yet. I'll wait. You keep saying that." He smiled. "I keep meaning it." On the walk home, Jace was bouncing ahead again, stuffed frog in one arm, balloon string tied to his wrist. Cassian kept his voice low as they walked side by side. "I want to ask you something." Leora glanced sideways. "All right. If I paid for your design license renewal, would you take it?" She slowed her pace. "That again?" "You were good," he said. "You are good." She gave him a look. "It's not about talent. It's about time, money, stability. I can help. I'm not asking for help, I know, but I'm offering it anyway." Leora stopped walking. Cassian paused too. She looked at him. "You think you can fix what happened by giving me my dream back?" "No," he said. "But I think you gave up your dream because I took too much space. And I want to give that space back." She swallowed hard. "You can't buy space." "I'm not trying to. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you while you take it back." Silence. Then, "What if I fail?" "Then you fail with someone in your corner this time." That night, after Jace went to bed, Leora opened her laptop. She pulled up the page for the license exam board. She didn't click anything. Not yet. But she stared at the form for a long time. And then, slowly, her fingers began to move. First name, last name, previous license number. She paused at the payment section. Cassian had given her an envelope earlier, told her not to open it unless she was serious. It sat on the table now, unopened. She reached for it, tore the flap carefully. Inside was a check. No note, just her name, written clearly, and the amount needed. And for once, she didn't feel small taking it. She felt seen. She clicked submit. By the end of the week, Leora had a schedule taped to the fridge. 3 nights a week, study, 2 weekends per month, mock exam sessions. Jace's bedtime, strictly 8:30. Cassian pickup duties, every Tuesday and Friday. It wasn't glamorous, and it wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And it was working. Cassian adapted without being asked. He arrived on time. He stayed until Jace was tucked in. Sometimes he left without seeing Leora at all, just a quiet text later that read, "Let me know if you need anything tomorrow. Proud of you." He didn't hover, he didn't push. And that was the part that started to unstick the wall around her heart. One Thursday night, after Jace had gone to bed and the apartment was quiet, Leora sat with a pencil in hand, sketching again. Not for school, not for work, just because The page in front of her was covered in curves and lines, soft rooftops and sweeping arches. She was halfway through shading when she felt it. Peace. Not joy. Not relief. Just quiet, real peace. It scared her, because peace was something she hadn't trusted in years. Friday evening came with a chill in the air. Cassian arrived early. He was dressed down, with takeout in one hand and Jace's soccer ball in the other. Leora opened the door. He stepped inside, shaking off the cold. "Thought I'd bring dinner." "Appreciated," she said, taking the bag. As she turned toward the kitchen, he paused. "I saw your name," he said. She looked over her shoulder. "On the registration list." "For the exam," he added. "I called the board today. Asked if you were signed up." She raised an eyebrow. "That's not public information. I might have mentioned a donation to the foundation." She shook her head, but she was smiling. "You're still a bulldozer." "I'm learning how to slow down," he said, "but I'm still moving forward." Leora set the bag down and faced him. "You shouldn't have called." "I know. I'm not doing this for you. I know that too." He stepped closer. "I'm doing this because I want you to know I believe in you." She crossed her arms. "And if I fail, you won't. But if I do?" He didn't blink. "Then we keep going." Dinner was quiet. Jace recounted a school story about a lizard someone brought to class. Leora laughed. Cassian chimed in with questions. It felt normal. Too normal. Later, when Jace had gone to bed, Cassian lingered at the door longer than usual. He turned just as Leora was about to close it behind him. "I've wanted to kiss you for weeks," he said, voice low. "But I haven't, because I wanted to be sure it wasn't just about the past." Leora froze. He continued, "And I still won't. Not tonight. Because I need you to know I'm not here for what we were. I'm here for what we are, and what we could still be." Her chest tightened. He looked down for a second, then back up. "Good night." She didn't close the door immediately. She just stood there, watching him walk away, her fingers still curled around the knob, the echo of his words louder than anything else in the room. The next morning, she slipped the chain around her neck again. The charm was still cool, still simple. But this time, it didn't feel like a relic from a love that failed. It felt like a marker of something still unfolding, something unfinished. Leora woke to the sound of her phone vibrating against the nightstand. It was barely dawn. The light creeping in through the window was faint, grey, uncertain. She rubbed her eyes and reached for it. Unknown number. She almost declined it, almost, but something in her gut told her to answer. "Hello?" A pause. Then a sharp, overly sweet voice. "Miss Venn?" "This is Marcy Taylor. I'm with Urban Style Weekly." Leora sat up slowly. "We were hoping to get a quick comment on your relationship with Mr. DeRoy and the story about your child. There's growing speculation about a possible engagement." Leora blinked, stunned. "What?" "We've received a few anonymous tips. Some say there's already a custody agreement. Others claim you're living in one of his properties." "That's not true," Leora said, her voice sharper now. "None of it. So no romantic involvement at this time. I'm not answering anything. Don't call this number again." She hung up and threw the phone on the bed. Her hands were trembling. By the time she got Jace ready for school, there were 2 more missed calls. One from another unknown number. One from a blog editor she remembered from Cassian's press junkets years ago. Her stomach sank deeper. At the curb, while Jace climbed into the school van, a woman with a camera poked out from behind a parked car. "Is that Cassian's son?" she asked, snapping a photo. Leora rushed forward. "Back off!" She shielded Jace's face and pulled the van door shut, giving the driver a quick nod to leave. The van sped off, and Leora turned to the woman. "You don't get to use him for clicks." But the woman was already backing away, adjusting her lens like this was just another assignment. Leora's jaw clenched as she walked back into the building. An hour later, she was in her manager's office at the hotel. "I'm sorry," her manager said, not looking at her directly. "We're just getting pressure. Your name is drawing attention." Leora's voice was quiet. I've never brought my personal life into this job. I know that, the manager said. But with the media poking around, corporate's nervous. They're asking for distance. So, I'm being let go. Her manager winced. We're calling it a pause, a freeze, maybe temporary. Leora nodded once, then stood. Don't bother sending paperwork. I won't be back. By noon, the photo of her and Jace at the park with Cassian was on 3 local news sites. The captions varied. Some hinted at a reunion. Some questioned paternity again. One simply read, "The billionaire, the waitress, and the secret son." It was humiliating. It was invasive. And it was exactly why she had never wanted Cassian back in her life. He called her 6 times before she answered. "Leora," he started. "You need to make it stop," she said. "I didn't leak anything. I swear to you." Then someone close to you did. "I'll handle it." She exhaled. "No, you're already too late. I'm sorry. You don't get to say that every time something breaks." There was silence on the line. Then he said, "Where's Jace?" "At school," she replied. "But he saw the camera this morning." Cassian's voice dropped. "Did they get near him?" "No. But that doesn't matter. The damage is done. Let me come over. I don't want you here right now." "Leora." "I mean it, Cassian." She ended the call and turned her phone off completely. She spent the next few hours pacing the apartment, checking the blinds, drinking cold coffee. By the time Jace came home, she had made a decision. He walked in, dropped his backpack, and gave her a look she hadn't seen in weeks. Worried, confused. "There were more cameras today," he said. Mr. Howard at the gate yelled at them. Leora knelt down to his level. "We're going away for a few days, okay?" Jace blinked. "Where?" "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere they can't find us." His brow furrowed. "Is Dad coming?" Her breath caught. "No," she said gently. "Just us." "Did he do something wrong?" "No," she replied. "But right now, we need space." Jace nodded slowly. "Okay. Can I pack Froggy?" "Definitely pack Froggy." That night, she packed their bags and left a short message for Cassian. "Jace and I need space. I'll call you when we're ready." She didn't include a location, didn't say how long. She left the necklace on the nightstand. She turned off the lights. And she walked away. Cassian hadn't slept. He sat in the corner of his penthouse, blinds still drawn, coffee untouched, and Leora's short message replaying in his mind. "Jace and I need space. I'll call you when we're ready." It said everything. And nothing. He scrolled through his inbox, angry at himself, his team, and the world. Somehow, despite all his control, everything had spun out again. Only this time, it wasn't about stock prices or property headlines. This time, it was about a boy with his eyes. And the woman who once trusted him enough to carry his child. 3 days passed. No calls, no texts, no trace. He didn't send anyone to track them. He wouldn't do that to her. But it tore at him. On the 4th morning, Cassian stood outside her apartment door. He didn't knock. He knew it would be empty. Instead, he left a small envelope tucked in the side of her mailbox. No name on it, just a single sheet inside. "I should have read that letter, but I'll wait until you're ready to speak again. Tell Jace he's missed." Leora sat on a wooden porch miles away from Chicago, the wind ruffling her son's curls as he chased frogs near a shallow creek. It wasn't far, just a small cabin her friend owned. Quiet, peaceful. Jace was happy. And she was tired. Tired of choices. Tired of being pulled between survival and softness. That night, when Jace slept beside her, curled under thick blankets, she turned her phone back on. 36 messages, 7 voicemails, 1 missed call from her old design school, and 1 email from a name she hadn't heard in almost 8 years, Sienna. Torres, talent manager, Harper Plus Lang Designs. Leora clicked it open. "Hi, Leora. I saw the news and remembered your portfolio from years ago. I never forgot your napkin sketches, those angles, the way you saw light and shadow. If you're ever ready to design again, I'd love to talk. Her breath hitched. For a moment, she was 23 again, full of hope. She closed the email, heart racing. Back in Chicago, Cassian met with his legal team and made 2 firm requests. 1. All statements about his personal life were to be retracted or ignored. 2. No lawsuits, no comments, no spin. He didn't want headlines. He wanted peace for Leora and Jace. By the end of the week, Leora returned. She unlocked her door just after sunset, Jace asleep in her arms. She didn't call ahead. She didn't need to. Her apartment was exactly as they'd left it, except for one change: a book on the table. Jace's favorite. A note on top read, "Page 23 is the one he loves most. I miss reading it to him." See. She sat down slowly, fingers brushing the cover. The next morning, Cassian walked into his office and found her waiting. She sat on the edge of the guest couch, hair tied back, fingers laced. He froze. "You're back." "I am," she said. His throat tightened. "Can I ask why?" "Because my son still asks for you," she replied. He stepped forward, slowly. "And you?" She met his eyes. "I don't know yet." "That's fair." There was silence between them. Then she asked quietly, "Why did you leave the book?" "I wanted Jace to feel normal," he said, "even if I couldn't be there." Leora studied him. "You're different," she murmured. He looked down. "I should be. I wasted years." Her voice lowered. "You didn't waste Jace's. That matters." That evening, he joined them for dinner. No questions, no tension. Just 3 people eating spaghetti and laughing over spilled Parmesan. Cassian took the seat across from Jace. No high chair, no control, just conversation. When Jace left to brush his teeth, Leora remained at the table, quiet. "You're good with him," she said. Cassian looked up. "He makes it easy." Her fingers traced the rim of her glass. "He doesn't open up easily." "I know. He's like his mom." That earned a small smile. "I've been thinking," she said softly, "about design. About maybe going back." Cassian lit up. "You should." "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of losing it again. Of giving up everything for someone else's timeline." He leaned forward. "Then don't do it for anyone else. Do it for you." She looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to win. He was just showing up. She stood, walked to the kitchen, then said, "Jace wants to go to the museum this weekend. I'll be there." That weekend, the 3 of them strolled through the Art Institute. Jace ran ahead, pointing at paintings and pretending to be an expert. Leora watched Cassian kneel beside him, listening patiently. At one point, Jace grabbed Cassian's hand and held it without hesitation. And for Leora, something shifted. She didn't say anything, but she didn't pull away either when Cassian reached for her hand too. Chicago was soft that morning. Warm air drifted through the open window of Leora's small kitchen. Jace sat at the table, tongue out as he colored a dragon on his breakfast placemat. The TV hummed faintly in the background, playing an old cartoon he'd memorized. Cassian stood near the stove, sleeves rolled, trying not to overcook the eggs. He had spent the night on the couch, not as a guest, not as a boyfriend, just as Jace's dad. Nothing had been defined between him and Leora, and still, everything felt different now. He burned the toast. "Dad," Jace said, nose wrinkling, "I think you need help." Cassian chuckled. "Yeah. I do." Leora laughed from the hallway. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair loose, a soft warmth in her face that hadn't been there before. "Not for years. Maybe next time," she teased, stepping in to take over. Cassian moved aside and let her work. She flipped the eggs with ease, light on her feet, in control. "I got a call last night," she said, after a pause. "That design firm, Harper plus Lang. They want me to lead a small renovation project." Cassian's eyes widened. "That's amazing, Leora." She nodded. "It's in Boston." His breath stilled. She looked up. "Just for 6 weeks. And after that," she shrugged, though her eyes held meaning. "They want me to consider full-time." But I haven't decided. Silence stretched between them. Jace was still humming. That afternoon, the three of them walked to the park. Cassian carried Jace's backpack, while Leora carried a small sketch pad. She hadn't drawn in months, but the urge had returned. Jace ran ahead toward the swings. Cassian and Leora sat on a bench. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. I don't want to lose what we've started rebuilding." "You won't," he said. "Even if you move, even if it's long distance. This doesn't fall apart again." Leora looked at him carefully. "You mean that?" "I mean everything now," he replied. "For once." She smiled softly. "That's what scares me." That night, after Jace fell asleep, Leora stood by her bedroom door. Cassian moved to leave, like he always did, but she spoke. "Stay." His heart beat louder than the quiet around them. He stepped inside. They sat on the edge of her bed. No rush, no assumptions. She handed him the necklace, the one he had given her so long ago. It had been restored, cleaned, still had the tiny charm, his initials etched in silver. "I used to wear it every day," she said. "Even when I hated you." He held it gently. "And now, I don't hate you," she whispered. "But I don't need you to complete me either." Cassian nodded. "That's good, because I don't want to complete you. I just want to be in your life. With you." She looked at him, eyes full of emotion. She reached for his hand, laced her fingers with his, then pulled him close, not in heat, but in peace. The past sat between them, but so did hope. In the days that followed, they spent hours as a family, cooking, reading, listening to Jace's made-up stories. The neighbors stopped staring. People online forgot. The only thing that remained was the quiet bond between them. Cassian started attending therapy, not because Leora asked, but because he wanted to understand the parts of himself that once failed her. Leora started sketching again. She laughed more, slept deeper, looked at herself in the mirror like someone returning to life. One night, Cassian found her sitting on the fire escape, sketchbook open. He brought her tea and sat beside her. "You okay?" She smiled. "I'm happy," he exhaled. "I like hearing that." She turned the page in her sketchbook. It was a drawing of a home. Wide windows, open porch, light everywhere. Cassian leaned in. "Is that real?" "Not yet," she said. "But maybe someday." He placed his hand on hers. "Whenever you're ready." 1 month later, the wind rolled through Lincoln Park, carrying the scent of new blooms and freshly cut grass. It was Saturday, Jace's favorite day. Cassian stood beneath the oak tree. In his hand, a small velvet box. Not just any box. Inside was a symbol. No grand gestures, no flash, just truth. Leora walked toward him, a navy blue jacket draped over one arm, her curls tucked behind her ears. She was beautiful, not just for how she looked, but for everything she had survived. "Hey," she said softly. "Hi." She glanced down at his hand. "What's that?" Cassian swallowed. "You'll see." They walked to the bench, the same bench where she once told him about Boston. Now, everything had shifted. Leora sat beside him. "Jace is with my sister today. He said he wants to teach her chess." Cassian smiled. "He beat me twice last night. Don't let him win." "I don't." They shared a quiet laugh. He turned serious. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what you said, about not needing me to complete you." She nodded slowly. "I know I hurt you. For years I thought walking away protected my reputation, my firm. But I lost so much more." She didn't interrupt. "I missed his first laugh, his first steps, his first words. I missed you, the way you sketch with your left hand and bite your lip when you're focused. I missed the sound of your laugh at 1 a.m. after too much tea. I missed everything." Her throat tightened. He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, a thin band with a small oval-cut diamond. Next to it, a second item, the original charm from her necklace, polished, restored. "I don't want to fix the past," he said. "I want to build something new, with the two of you." Leora's eyes watered. She closed the box gently, holding it between them. "I'm not ready to marry you, Cassian." He nodded. "I didn't expect you to be. I just wanted you to know. The door's open." She smiled through the tears. "I never closed it. I just needed you to knock." He let out a soft laugh. "Fair." That evening, the three of them sat around Leora's tiny dining table. Jace recited random facts about dinosaurs while eating macaroni. Leora reached over and gently adjusted his napkin. Her hand brushed Cassian's. They held each other's gaze. No words, just warmth. Cassian stood, walked to his coat, then returned with a rolled-up sheet of paper. He unrolled it across the table. Jace's eyes lit up. It was a drawing, colored, labeled, precise. A new house, 3 bedrooms, a backyard, a studio for Leora, a reading nook for Jace, a sunlit corner with no title, but clearly meant for Cassian's quiet mornings. "You drew this?" Leora asked, touched. He shook his head. "You did, a long time ago. I kept your napkin sketch." Her breath hitched. Cassian looked at her. "I had it rendered." Jace squealed. "Is this gonna be our house?" Cassian looked to Leora. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she folded the blueprint carefully, stood, and walked to her room. When she came back, she held the necklace in her hand. She placed it on the table. "I'll wear it again," she said. "Not because of the past, but because I believe in what we're building." Cassian leaned forward, voice low. "So, can I keep coming for story time?" She smiled. "Only if you bring the silly voices." He grinned. "Deal." Cassian once thought power meant control. That leadership required distance. But love demands presence, not performance. Leora thought silence would protect her peace, but her voice became the bridge that rebuilt everything. And Jace? He never asked for perfection. He just needed someone to stay. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was real, earned, slow, full of broken pieces being used to build something stronger. Because second chances aren't given, they're chosen, every day. With intention. Have you ever wished someone had simply listened, instead of assuming? If this story touched something deep in you, tell us in the comments. What would you do if someone you once loved showed up with truth too late? Drop your thoughts below, like if you believe love deserves a second chance, but only if it comes with change. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. And if stories like this move you, subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories for more real, raw, unforgettable tales.